Good morning, USA, and welcome to another episode of the Bernie or Bust Show. Unshaved, unbathed, unedited, and unscripted. Today we're going to jump to the kinds of news, as we do every day, that is not covered on your television. Except Bernie or Bust television. Here is the inimitable Lee Camp speaking about things that are happening in other parts of the world that the media won't tell you about. I'll pick a few of those to show you here.
For those occasions, as reported by the Gray Zone, 10 years ago, the democratically elected center-left Honduran president Manuel Zelaya was whisked away from his residence in a brazen military raid supported by the United States. Zelaya's removal cleared the path for the interests of big business across the country. He was whisked away in a military coup? I always thought the phrase whisked away was reserved for, romance novels. My dear Francois, the way you whisked me away, taking me to a picturesque bed and breakfast for some light anal play was magnifique. Whatever, point being. Protesters are literally burning the U.S. Embassy because we installed a fuckhead to rule over them. How is that not news? Hondurans are furious. They're rightfully furious at the neoliberal austerity measures supported by our government and the IMF. The measures have caused massive layoffs, increased cost of basic goods, essentially made their life suck down there. You got to take out a loan to get a can of soup. But as long as their government is pillaging the people of Honduras appropriately, our government is cool with it, all right?
And why is that? Because the transnational corporations are doing this to the whole world. The point of humanity, if you're one of the fat cats at the top, is to have our populations increase and turn us into consumers. And if you remember, I've said earlier that according to the data, we're 400% more productive now than we were in 1950 because of technological advances. But we're not seeing that. In some places, it's worse than others, and in the places where it's the worst, the bottom percent of the people are in such horrible conditions that they're doing things like in this picture. And he keeps referring to the word neoliberal. The neoliberal machine, it's not liberal, it's capitalistic, it's predatory capitalism. And the whole thing is designed to squeeze money from the bottom up to the top. It isn't a free market. It's a game that has rules, and the rules are designed to do the opposite of trickle down. It's squeeze up economics. But that doesn't catch on in the corporate news.
Let's move on to the tiny country of Brazil, which happens to be the fifth largest country in the world, which makes it the largest of the countries Americans don't care about. Recently, a nationwide strike called by Brazil's trade unions disrupted public transport and triggered roadblocks ahead of protests against far-right President Bolsonaro's pension reform. An estimated 45 million workers had taken part in the strike. 45 million people.
What would happen here if 45 million transportation workers took part in a strike? I keep telling the trucker friends that this is the way to solve problems, not at the ballot box. This is the way they do it in Brazil and Venezuela. And other places. He'll get to some of those too. But voting only does so much. 45 million.
Shut down Brazil. Can you imagine getting 45 million Americans to agree on anything? You couldn't get that many to agree that sneezing and farting at the same time is unacceptable during a piano recital.
I don't know. Some piano recitals I've been to, that might have improved them. But what I'd say is if you can get the news out, the reason I think we can't get 45 million people to agree here is because corporate news has a blockade on anything that could get the people stirred up. He's going to talk about Occupy Wall Street as an example, but I'd say that it may be easier, it's just a guess, in Venezuela and Brazil to get the word out to the people. And I don't know how it works, but and maybe we're just here, maybe we're just less reliable than they are there. But I think that there's a reason that we're not stirred up. I think it's because we don't ever hear anything that we're not allowed to hear, other than Lee here. Lee is a great example of the news that you're not meant to hear.
But this is not a story your corporate media will cover because A, it's not good for the fascist president we support down there, and B, it might make American workers think, what if we had a general strike?
Yeah.
You don't suppose we actually have power over the means of production, do you? You don't suppose we're the ones who make the whole thing go while the fat guy in the big office laughs his nuts off, do you? You don't suppose the material productive forces of society have come into conflict with the property relations in the framework of what they have operated under hitherto, thereby facilitating an era of social revolution, do you? Yeah.
Yeah, he's funny. But how dangerous are those words? People started to internalize what he's saying and start nodding their heads and saying, whoa. And that's what George Carlin has continually said that they don't want. The fat cats in the big rooms smoking their cigars, they don't want people to figure this stuff out. So of course they're not going to show you the news in these South American countries.
No, can't have Americans thinking we have more in common with the workers of Brazil than we have in common with the billionaire titans of Dickory. How about Haiti? Let's move on to Haiti. Protests have been ongoing for weeks. At a recent demonstration, the posters said things like, U.S. Ambassador Cezanne, supporting this corrupt government of Haiti is racist. We are here to tell Donald Trump we aren't going to accept this from his administration. Come and get your thief, President Moisi. Yes, Trump, go to Haiti and whisk away your corrupt president. No, the U.S. doesn't whisk away the presidents we like. We only do that to the ones we don't like, such as former president of Haiti, Jean-Bertrand Aristide. In 2005, Aristide said the U.S. did indeed kidnap him a year earlier as they overthrew his government. So they whisked away Aristide, they helped to whisk away Zelaya, and for 2 days in 2002, they whisked away the Venezuelan president Hugo Chavez, but he came back, apparently. That time, they didn't whisk hard enough, all right? You gotta really get you back into it, you know? You gotta really whisk hard, and then just a pinch of assault. Just a pinch of military assault for taste. Moving on, the Yellow Vest protests in France have decreased, but they have not ended. It's gotten a little mainstream coverage, very little, recently because it's not good for the oligarchs' propaganda. I mean, think about it. The French have the fucking guillotines ready to go, and here we are in America where three guys have the same amount of wealth as the bottom 50% of the country.
Watch what he does here. He said guillotine. And then he put three wealthy Americans, or transnationals. They're not really loyal to America. I wouldn't even call them Americans. I would call them traitors. So he's got, if you think the way I do, if you would call them traitors, and then he says guillotine, and in almost the same breath, he puts these three faces up here. And he's laughing. He's laughing. But this is incendiary stuff. And then he softens it by talking about rubber bands. But this is amazing.
And those three guys, they don't even look like they could take a punch. I mean, you could knock them over with the little rubber band on the thumb thing. You could. You really could. So let's buy some rubber bands, shall we? I have a fucking Costco membership. This shit's going down. All right? Rubber bands for the robber barons. I'm going to start selling those t-shirts. There was also a massive anti-Trump rally in Venezuela just a few days ago. Thousands upon thousands marched to demand an end to the U.S. economic war on that country. And let's not forget the Palestinian Great March of Return continues for the 70th week. To this date, the Palestinian Center for Human Rights documented 208 killings by the Israeli military since the outbreak of the protests in March 2018, including 44 children, 4 paramedics, 2 journalists, and there have been 13,391 wounded. So apparently,
this message is never going to get out in mainstream media. Whatever your feelings are about our relationship with Israel, and whatever your feelings are about Israel's relationship with the Middle East or with Palestine, I mean, you're not going to get this word. This is, again, very volatile what he's saying. He's trying to tell the truth about Israel, and that's not coming through the mainstream media.
13,391 wounded is not enough to warrant Anderson Cooper or Fox and Friends to take notice. But
let's remember that Anderson Cooper is on the talent agency we talked about earlier, and part of the cabal I mentioned that's connected to the Clinton machine. And I supported this, lest you think I should whip out my tinfoil hat again. I supported this with evidence from a leaked email, a WikiLeaks email, a Podesta email, so you can see the connection directly between these talent agency execs and the Clinton machine. So the fact that he mentioned Anderson Cooper, I don't know that he's aware of this. I haven't seen him talk about it yet. Same with Nico. Well, Nico is aware of it. Nico's the one that I got the information from in the first place. But Tim Black also, I don't know that he's aware of this connection, but everything that they complain about in terms of this media blockade can be traced there. So Anderson Cooper coming up there, I think that's important.
let's not be too judgmental of our media. Maybe they're waiting for 13,392. Maybe that's the magic number, or maybe they've been overwhelmed with footage of, a rat carrying a piece of pizza or something. They have very hard jobs, all right? Chris Cuomo was called Fredo the other day, all right? That's just me.
There's another one on that.
Another protest movement that got very little coverage until the mainstream media sheepishly downplayed it was Occupy Wall Street.
Right.
So anytime you see intense corporate media coverage of a group of people rising up against their government, it's not that you shouldn't support the people, but you should ask what our government propaganda arm gains by adding fuel to those protests and why they aren't covering so many other mass movements. Somebody from Washington.
Yep. That question we should just keep asking ourselves over and over. We should watch Lee Camp. We should support him because he's, again, behind the blockade. And that will be a theme that comes up again about how there are powerful people trying to get the real news out who aren't allowed. I'll probably in the next few days get to a story that Tim Black broke about black media companies who are behind this blockade. So stay tuned. In the meantime, have another slurp of coffee and enjoy your Friday. See you tomorrow.